Hi, I'm Jessica Ardeal. I am a certified body talk practitioner with the International Body Talk Association, and today we get to speak with Tricia True. Tricia's out of Northern California. You are an advanced certified body talk practitioner. You also incorporate body talk for animals, Tricia. I'm really excited to speak with you and can't wait to hear more. So thank you so much for taking the time out to be here and talk with us about body talk.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited to be here too. This is great. I would, there's so many experiences that I've had, since starting. And I guess one of the ways I could begin is letting you know how I was introduced to Body Talk, and that was through my husband, which, interesting enough, he's a plumber. And his background was in landscaping and construction work for many years. Then he had a vision of a healer that brought him, that's traced, that's kind of popped into his visual field on occasions. And this time he decided to pay attention to it. And he made an about face from the plumbing business and thought that very day started seeking a local, a local healer here. And he wanted to find out if he could be an apprentice. So that local healer told him about Body Talk.
Wow.
And I was in the process and still am currently an MFT, so marriage family therapist. I work with crisis issues, so I'm considered a crisis counselor, and wanted a little bit more hands-on experience, probably that kinesthetic aspect of myself, was looking for some satisfaction. And so I had just graduated from School of Massage at the time that David was going through his process. So was getting turned on about the energy medicine from the massage school. So then took a look at the IBA website, spent hours, like basically an afternoon, just absorbing and allowing things to wash over me, the consciousness, the principles of the Chinese medicine, and having a little background in the Chinese appreciation for my own health, having sought an acupuncturist and also taking Tai Chi when I was in my early 30s. I had already, and having Chinese herbs that were having a beneficial effect on me with my own health, there was that spark along with the energy medicine. And then took my very first Body Talk Access, which you've probably taken yourself, learning the 5 techniques, and then that one special one, the bonus one that a lot of people think is the miracle, piece to the whole thing, and that's the fast aid. So I was applying these techniques on a daily basis, just as, doing my homework, taking on that experimental attitude of, okay, let's see if this is what's going to happen. And of course, I found my own health issues improving quite a bit. And it was gradual, and I believe that doing the techniques on a day-by-day basis has an accumulative effect on a person's life. So that I didn't want to miss a day. So I made sure that I was doing as much as possible of the 5 techniques. When I had a knee board accident, that's when it really had an impact on me, this fast aid technique that you know about. I basically, got climbing up onto the boat, shaking from the shock. I thought to myself, the way that knee board, smacked against my knee, I was probably going to be limping for days. And I could feel that it was already because he was red and it was already starting to swell. But I had a tool. So right when I got on the boat, I started applying that tool. And I watched that red mark that was, larger, turn into a small pink spot. The throbbing went away within minutes. And there was no need for ice, no need for pain medication. It was like, this is really something that within 3 hours, didn't even seem like I had the accident at all. I mean, if I were writing the chapter of my book, that's what I would be writing, something about, wow, this is extraordinary. So that's what promoted me, or encouraged me to go deeper into the body talk system. And then, of course, having already a service-oriented uh, part of myself for maybe 30 years, being involved in nursing and then a little bit of physical therapy aid, so not quite leaving the physical body, and then, of course, the MFT work. When I got deeper involved in the body talk system, as you know, this healthcare system that's so comprehensive, it brings in all aspects of a human person, their psyche, their life experiences, their emotions, their mental thought process, and that turned me on about it, because I can then apply what my experiences were in the MFT and other aspects. The massage and the other modalities, Bubble, as you know, is a great thing to have for someone who has other tools in their tool belt. So I think that's what basically got me in.
So the body talk access techniques that you're doing on yourself and noticing those gradual shifts, which I'm glad you mentioned that, because so many stories that stick out are those immediate responses, like in your example, utilizing the fast aid, right? And just that expression, energy flows where intention goes. Just to make it a little more tangible for people, that fast aid technique really focuses the brain and body communication and ability to target the site or impact of injury. So it's not something esoteric. There's principles and techniques and application behind it. And so then the body talk system dives in even more, right? And it allows us to facilitate this whole story and communication and tap into this language of the body. So Tricia, what kind of people do come and see you? Do you incorporate body talk into your established practice? Do you have to keep them separate, or how do you have that set up?
I as far as the crisis counseling is more Western based, although there was an interesting cross in that Child Protective Service had contacted me in regards to someone who wasn't responding well to their traditional way of doing things. And so it was great to have access to a whole different way, and for them to have exposure to the body talk and how effective it could be versus the talk therapy, which I believe the sessions that she received for her addiction was cut in half if she had received regular psychotherapy. Not to say that psychotherapy, of course, being that I'm involved in it, is not to downplay it in any way. It definitely serves a purpose, and it's very valuable for folks. So that's one thing that was really wonderful to see, that how effective it can be for addictions. Probably one of my best case studies is someone who walked in with Hep C and was an alcoholic, had liver cirrhosis, and he gradually, he came in depressed. He was basically incapable of doing work. So that was an important piece to his self-image, was getting back to work. Well, he was able to go back to work on a part-time basis gradually again, and also took volunteer work with animals, with animal lovers, and got married. So all these things took place over the course of him seeing me as a body talk practitioner. And I, of course, know that all those aspects are addressed in the body talk system. So as you know, there's these two different branches. I've talked about the body talk access, and it's a preventive techniques that help someone's overall health. And I mentioned that mine was gradual, and I can tell you a little bit about that. And then I want to tell you a little bit about how the body talk system, as you know too, addresses the underlying kinds of emotions. I think of the emotions and these belief systems that we have that are destructive for us as kind of like the glue that seems to go into our fascia and holds the traumas there. And when a body talk practitioner comes and sees a person, they are looking at the person as a whole, and whatever their body's wisdom reveals to the practitioner, that becomes the highlight of what they're going to be addressing. So even if they come in with symptoms, as you know, those symptoms may not be addressed right away. The priority might be circulation for a particular organ or an endocrine. So that's part of what's exciting about Body Talk is it addresses what's a priority. It's looking at the whole, communicating with the different parts, linking them up, and that the practitioner, all the energy that she is doing is some hand positions, some light tapping over the brain to kind of activate the brain, to see what's taking place, what the body's own innate wisdom is revealing here. And then that through the focus of the practitioner, these changes can take place. 150 trillion, maybe there's more, trillion cells in our body, and they start integrating the formula and the tapping, and changes can happen. So with myself personally, the Body Talk access and taking, of course, being, when you hear my conditions, I'll let you know. I had allergies since I was a child, and then by the year 2004 or so, I was diagnosed as adult asthma. Then I started taking allergy shots. So I was doing allergy shots, allergy medications, the Advair, the inhalers, the nebulizer. That was my routine in 2008. I came across Body Talk Access by 2010 and started applying those techniques, motivated, of course, to help my own health condition. I'm one of those kind of people that's allergic to a lot of antibiotics. So when I would get a cold, sometimes, being it's a virus, it might turn into bacteria. But basically, I dreaded a cold because it would turn into 3 to 5 weeks of missing work to get over, to get to recovery. With the new Body Talk Access techniques that I was able to apply for myself, that has certainly shortened it to sometimes only a day, to now sometimes when I get a tickle in my throat, because again, I'm saying it's cumulative. Now this was 2010, now it's 2015, that when I get a little tickle, it's gone within minutes. So the symptoms disappear. It's almost as though there's something that happens where I almost think that when I apply the tools, it has its own insisting. It insists that the healing mechanism gets kicked in and starts to work. So it's a different way of looking at it. One of the more fascinating case studies, besides this other one that I mentioned with the liver psoriasis, was a woman. She was in her 70s. She came to see me very distraught. She really was almost making a suicide statement when she came to see me, because she was so upset about not being able to sleep from hearing voices, hummings, sounds, and these background sounds that were loud enough that they were keeping her up. And it was only within 2 months. She was obviously way beyond the onset of being able to be diagnosed as schizophrenia. So that was not what was going on. And some people will be hearing voices like that. She had gone to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. She also went to a hearing center, and both of those avenues did not provide a diagnosis or any treatment for her. So she really was in a disturbed state. A friend of hers had told her about Body Talk, and she was willing to try it. And after the first session, she had 2 hours of silence, and she was thrilled. She called me up right away, and she says, "Can I bet that this is going to be working?" She just really wanted to have that hope. And I said, "Well, let's have you keep coming in until you meet the satisfaction." Well, she was able to get that satisfaction after only 6 sessions. So interesting, I think that's what makes Body Talk so valuable for people that don't have the satisfaction. Either they're through the medications of the Western medicine, they're getting the side effects, they're not satisfied with that, or that the treatment modality that they're using is not effective enough, bringing them to the kind of recovery, or that they have a sense that energy medicine, being that it's a more holistic approach, they have a sense that because they know that they have some past traumas, they want to actually see if those things can be worked on with the symptoms that they're currently having. So, get me going.
Tricia, no, I appreciate you sharing. And the piece that you did mention, and I just want to reiterate, is obviously Body Talk doesn't replace the Western model. And what's great is that anybody that is in that world can utilize Body Talk and incorporate it with what they're doing. And that's just such a useful piece to, adjunct whatever it is, whether it's physical therapy or, medical, whatever you can, take it and apply it and add it in and really start to empower people with themselves. It's really, what it comes down to, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And what's wonderful is Body Talk also has all these other courses that one could take. So once they've taken the fundamentals, they can take advanced courses, and it's fascinating. You get deeper into the Chinese principles that every part of our body, organ, endocrine has its own consciousness and has its own little role and job description to serve. And of course, all the cells, the liver, as you might know, that holds anger or will hold that, also has the job of planning and deciding, and that's an important role. And so all the cells are working to link up with the different other parts of the body to make sure that whatever we plan in our life and decisions we're making is going to lead us in the direction that we want to go. So,
Yeah, tapping into that life force that wants and knows the best for us, right? And we can start to have that conscious connection and really start to live the life of our dreams. What was your life before and after Body Talk, Tricia, when you look at it,
It's so amazing, because that's one of the things I was just saying to someone yesterday in San Mateo, because I went there to coordinate an access class, is that one could go into Body Talk and you can be committed to, okay, a service orientation, you want to be able to help people. So here you've got some tools and you begin to do that. You don't really know. You think to yourself, well, maybe I'll just have a practice. That's career development in and of itself. And then if you take some of the advanced courses, you find yourself like Body Talk for Animals. You might find yourself wanting to then move in that direction. Or maybe you learn a little bit more about consciousness and you want to go deeper into that area. One of the things that I would say has changed, and now I was voted most shy in high school, and recently, because I became, again, I believe it's Body Talk, moved me in a direction of wanting to recognize some of my own issues as far as reticence, lack of confidence in some areas, my negative emotions, maybe different things that hold you back, and also belief patterns that have held me back. And I've been doing some writing over the course of maybe 10 years. And so that's a little bit before Body Talk. But now that I'm in Body Talk, I feel that there's something in me that wants to be able to put that forth. And so I'm interested in women issues and empowering women towards self-care, because I think that when we start to take responsibility for our own health care, it opens up so much more. It's like, well, if we got that taken care of, then we can move on to something else and that are of other dreams that we have. That's what I want to do, is be able to pass along something that has moved me forward in my life, to be able to not have health be an issue, that's a wonderful thing. It's great to have these tools. And then to see people coming and receiving sessions, and after a few sessions, or even sometimes one session, they already look different. So I had someone who came in recently. I work with people that usually have emotional issues, depression or anxiety, phobias come up quite a bit. Phobia is great. Body talk just really addresses it very well. And this person had a fear of flying, and she rated her fear on a scale of 0 to 10 as a 9. And I could see that she was nervous talking about it. And went ahead and did a session. By the time I did a check-in call with her after that very first session, she was already much more optimistic. She had a completely different shift. And by the second session, she was at a scale of 0 to 10 of 4, and that was terrific in and of itself. The third session brought her to a 2, and 2 days later she had her flight trip. And so that was going to be let's see what happens now, that she's actually going through the experience, because the body talk was bringing her to do certain techniques that would help her when she might get that butterfly feeling in her stomach, this little bit of anxiety that then turns into a bigger thing if you don't start to take care of that and manage that. So, but when I called her after her flight, she was still a 2 during the entire flight experience. So, it's just, that's the kind of thing. It's so rewarding to have people, bring people to a different place in their life, that they can move on from these kinds of fears or depression and have a happier, more joyful life. That's what we're meant to do.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
And you mentioned body talk for animals, Tricia. I would love to hear any case studies or session stories that you have.
It's funny how sometimes the very first ones, almost the very first animal that you work on tends to, almost like a first love. Those are the memories that you have, because it's like, wow. So I had the fortunate opportunity to go to Canada, Armstrong, Canada, and receive the information from Lucia Jacobs, which I think she's just a master of all animals. She's just something else. And it was quite an experience for me in many levels. And then my husband and I, when we returned, we thought, well, we got to start doing this for animals. So we decided to go to an animal shelter, because, of course, that's going to be ideal. These animals are in a situation where it's very stressful. They're having to share sometimes their very confined space, and they're waiting for a home. So that's what we did. And the first animal that I worked on, the particular shelter place didn't have like an office, so we created an office in the bathroom, because we needed to bring the animal there. And we also brought the owner because that's how you're taught, is you don't touch the animal, because I'm not trained as a vet, so I want to respect that. That's what a vet would do. And so in the training, you use the owner as the surrogate. So she was there, and my husband was there as well, and it was a pit bull, and this dog was all over the place, very scattered, and basically very restless. And it looked like, okay, let's start off with courtesies and see what happens. And by the time I went through the second or third hand position of the courtesies, which of course, as you know, is addressing all the lobes of the brain to bring some calming down, bringing the right and left hemisphere together so that there's communication, cooperation, and harmony between those hemispheres. Well, this dog laid right down. And I continued to do this session, which didn't take very long. Animals have very few filters. They don't they don't have the kind of glue that we have, as far as if there's a trauma, they may not have this thought pattern that, oh, I'm never going to get well, I'm never going to get well. Those kinds of thought patterns that we might have that hold the disease or conditions in our system. So as soon as I was done with the session, as immediately done with the session, that dog came over and gave me a kiss on my knee. It was just the sweetest thing to see that how an animal responds, that they seem to know that something happened, something shifted. Am I seeing you get kind of warm tears there?
It really does warm my heart. It's such an important part of our human existence to have reverence and respect and an honoring for the life force of our animal brothers and sisters, whatever form they take, wild or domestic. Do you have one more that you could share, Tricia?
I could, there's so many, but I think that one of the things animals do contribute so much to our lives. Not, of course, any animal lover that has a pet, they know what that unconditional love is all about. And they have so much to teach us. They really do want to they want to rescue us in some ways from our own self-destructive tendencies. And that is done with their love. I would say, I think that would be the note that I would like to play with animals. As a practitioner, especially when you're first starting, it's so good to take the body talk for animals if you're interested in working with animals, because you can see the shifts take place so readily, and it builds that confidence and it helps you see the value of this energy medicine, because they don't need to, there's no particular language that's taking place between yourself and the animal. They're picking up something, and you gain that sense of beauty of that body wisdom that's not only with the animal but with us as well. And the interconnection between the owner and the pet, that's a whole other piece in and of itself, because the owner also gets to receive some of the benefit of the healing energy medicine work. And then, as you know, the practitioner receives a little bit too. That's what energy just doesn't have bounds. It's not limited. And that's a wonderful thing. So the animals, they are here to serve a purpose and contribute to our lives. And I think acknowledging that is an important piece. Becoming students of animals, as what can we learn, what can we listen to from them? Because sometimes they know their responsible role as little healers in the family, and they'll let you know when you're working with the animals. They'll let you know what their role is, and what kinds of things they might want. I know one of them let me know that they wanted to play more with their owner, and it resonated with the owner because her life had become very stressful and she wasn't doing as much play, and that still is very important, that kind of interaction.
Yes, there's such a sweetness, not only in the animals, but it gets us in touch with our, pure place of love. And thank you for sharing and all that you do to connect people and their pets and with themselves. So we can find your bio on the Body Talk website.
That's
And
right.
how else
Body
can we connect with you?
BodyTalkCalifornia.org is really a really good website, and you can find me there and my husband and read all about the testimonials that have happened right here in our office. That's where we are right now. Oh, and I don't know if we have about a minute. Maybe we can do courtesies.
Please.
Okay, so I'm learning. I may not have told you, Jessica, but I'm actually becoming trained to teach the Body Talk Access.
Oh,
So it's
wonderful.
very exciting. That's why I was there in San Mateo just yesterday. But let's go ahead and have everyone learn the courtesies. So all we need is two hands with courtesies. We have one hand that's going to have our fingers closed, and that's going to go to the base of our neck where the skull and the neck meet. The other hand's going to be nice widespread, and it's going to tap over the midline of our brain, because we want to make the connection between the right and left hemisphere of the brain. In a way, that's happening. Point A to point B is right from this point, the base of our hand, to the tips of our finger, bringing the right and left hemisphere together. Once we've taken a full breath, 2 full breaths, We then move our hand forward to this position. We want to cover the entire brain, all the lobes of the brain, because they all serve their own separate function. We come up here after 2 full breaths. Usually it's tapping a couple times. The breath is real important. Exaggerated breath is even better because it gives the brain a chance to scan the high and low frequencies of the body. I'm moving my hand forward as I do this. We want to make sure that when we get to this place, we're covering over the eyebrow. The cortices brings on relaxation. It reduces stress. We place our hands, this is our last position, over the limbic system, the temporal part of the lobe of the brain. Deep within is the amygdala, which does register our stress. We can tap that. It's very simple, doesn't take very long. This is the first of the 5 techniques in the Body Talk Access. It's one of the most important techniques, and it has actually, it's amazing. It has brought people right out of coma. And that's a fabulous thing because it helps reduce the shock, which is sometimes the reason why a person goes into coma. And it does all kinds of other things. As you know, we don't want to be dominant in any one part of our brain. We want them to integrate together and work in cooperation with each other.
There are so many case studies, and thank you for sharing that and demonstrating the technique, Tricia. The cortices just puts healthcare in our hands, like you said, right? And we can take an active role in our healthcare with that technique alone and feel the difference and that connection. And yeah, thank you so much, Tricia. Is there anything you wanted to share before we go now?
Oh gosh, thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate what you're doing, bringing this Body Talk series of information to the public to try to dispel some of the mystery, and also to expose it because a lot of people have never heard of Body Talk. And if they hear it, they might have skepticism. I had skepticism first. But when you start applying the techniques to yourself and you've learned them, that's really, it can be so amazing what can come from it. And so I highly recommend people checking out Body Talk.
Thank you, Tricia. I know we could keep talking for days about Body Talk. So yes, go experience it yourself. Thank you so much for taking the time and everybody for tuning in. So we'll see you later. Bye for now.
Bye.